I, Andrew Witherspoon, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
Welcome to this week's show. I'm your host, Sean, did he really say that, Armstrong. This week, I'll be looking at Eric Holder's call for smart guns. How about smart politicians? And a follow-up on the New York State SAFE Act. Attorney General Eric Holder said gun tracking bracelets are something the Justice Department wants to explore as part of gun control efforts. When discussing gun violence prevention programs within the Department of Justice, Holder told a House Appropriations Subcommittee on Friday that his agency is looking into technological innovations.
If honesty was suddenly introduced into politics, it would throw everything off. The whole system would collapse. And I think deep down the American people know that. The American people like their bullshit out front, where they can get a good, strong whiff of it.
You know, I could be nitpicking here, but wouldn't a good start be? Keep in mind, I'm spitballing here. Don't send guns over the border. Just a suggestion. Might give you a bit more credibility. Now here's a thought you listeners might want to let sink in about any department of the government when they have some brilliant idea about technology. This is the same government who set up the Obamacare website. Do you really want them putting their technology into something your life may depend on? By making them either through fingerprint identification, the gun talks to a bracelet or something that you might wear. How guns can only be used by the person who is lawfully in possession of the weapon.
This guy is fucking stupid!
So you mean the criminals are all going to turn in their standard guns for your smart gun? It's those kinds of things that I think we want to try to explore so that we can make sure that people have the ability to enjoy their Second Amendment right, but at the same time decreasing the misuse of the weapons that lead to the kinds of things that we see on a daily basis, Holder said. First, the Second Amendment is a right, not something you enjoy. It's something you're born with. I enjoy drinking beer. Not a right, but I enjoy it. This guy seems to have a poor understanding of what the Second Amendment was put in the Constitution for. The Justice Department has requested $382.1 million in increased spending for its fiscal year 2014 budget for gun safety. Included in this proposal is $2 million for gun safety technology grants, which would award prizes for technologies that are proven to be reliable and effective. I think that one of the things that we learned when we were trying to get past those common sense reforms last year, Vice President Biden and I had a meeting with a group of technology people, and we talked about how guns can be made more safe, he said. Joe Biden, common sense? Those two words should never be in the same sentence, especially when it comes to guns.
Do you believe that banning certain weapons and high-capacity magazines will mean that law-abiding citizens will then become more of a target to criminals, as we will have no way to sufficiently protect ourselves?
Is this Parents Magazine?
It is.
I have Parents Magazine at home. I've never heard anybody in Parents Magazine ask these kinds of questions, but I'm delighted to answer them. First of all, the idea that... Repeat the last part of the question, please.
So she's asking if a ban goes into effect on certain kinds of weapons and high-capacity magazines.
And what's her name?
Kate.
Kate, if you want to protect yourself, get a double-barrel shotgun, have the shells, a 12-gauge shotgun, and I promise you, as I told my wife, we live in an area that's wooded and somewhat secluded. I said, Jill, if there's ever a problem, just walk out on the balcony here or walk out, put that double-barrel shotgun and fire 2 blasts outside the house. I promise you, whoever's ever coming in is not going to... You don't need an AR-15. It's harder to aim, it's harder to use, and in fact, you don't need 30 rounds to protect yourself. Buy a shotgun. Buy a shotgun.
Damn, an imbecile. Like the dumbest motherfucker that ever lived. Everybody knows you never go full retard. You went full retard, man. Never go full retard.
This argument isn't anything new. Gun manufacturers can incorporate personalizing devices in their weapons now so that only authorized people can use it, but they don't. And car companies can build personal flying machines that would replace cars, yet they don't. Why? Because they're hideously expensive, untested, and unreliable. When someone suggests to you that so-called smart guns should be mandatory, argue that you'll only consider the idea when all law enforcement officers have already implemented such devices. After all, a large number of police are killed by firearms or murdered with their own weapons. There aren't too many officers on the street using smart gun technology because, like me, they aren't willing to risk their lives on untested technology that may fail when they need it most. In fact, every instance of a law mandating smart guns in the United States has explicitly exempted police officers from its requirements. This is because every single police organization in the U.S. has opposed mandating smart gun technology for officer duty weapons. Hey, if the cops don't trust it, why should we? We face the same threats they do, without the protection of the law if we use deadly force. I just wanted to note that gun registration is already failing in New York State. The New York SAFE Act is poorly thought out, knee-jerk reaction piece of gun control legislation that has minimal support outside of the liberal let's ban everything anti-gun crowd. New York City, and a few tofu-eating let's legalize pot hotspots in upstate. Gun owners across the state are refusing to comply with the approaching registration deadline for their assault weapons, with some gun owners making a public statement by burning their registration forms. And the Speaker of the House, when the bill was passed, openly admitted it was unenforceable. The New York State Police have announced they will not be enforcing the magazine capacity limit provision of the law, and the New York Sheriff's Association is encouraging their member sheriffs to not enforce the law at all. Gun manufacturers in the state have devised ways around the ban of certain cosmetic features and are still producing AR-type rifles that are compliant with the law. Remington Arms simply decided to leave the state, taking their jobs with them to a more gun-friendly state. And crime will increase thanks to the lost jobs. Where there's poverty, there's crime. Way to increase the crime rate, fools. It would appear that New York gun control law is a misfire, according to IJ Review. By April 15th, any New Yorker that owns an assault weapon is to have registered their gun, per the requirements of the New York SAFE Act passed last year. But it's looking more and more like a tiny percentage of New Yorkers are actually doing it. While the state of New York has not released actual firearms registration numbers, the rumors of registrations in the 3,000 to 5,000 range means that 99% of those affected gun owners are refusing to comply with the law. And the state police have estimated there are currently 1 million military-style weapons in New York State. The new compliant rifles that are being produced by gun manufacturers are also problematic. The problem with any assault gun law is that they necessarily focus on the appearance of the gun, such as hand grip style, color, or other feature. The ammunition that such a gun uses is identical to that used by guns that are deemed legal. In other words, the style of the gun determines its acceptability instead of the substance. They all fire the same bullets. They solve nothing except to force law-abiding gun owners to spend more money on accessories for their guns they didn't need, for stock accessories that did nothing to make the gun any different than any other semi-automatic firearm. This is great news for gun owners and gun rights supporters nationwide, but especially in New York. Support for gun control was never as high as anti-gunners assume, and it has been steadily declining as they have pushed forward with their short-sighted and counterproductive gun control laws. Hopefully, once it's fully apparent what a completely spectacular failure this law is, it will be repealed. Furthermore, perhaps one day support for the rights of gun owners will prevail, and New York can join the multitudes of states that are pushing back and nullifying restrictive gun control laws. I don't think so. I think they'll try and pass more laws and more laws and more laws to appease the dumber minority. The question is, how far are they willing to take it? And how far are gun owners willing to let them take it? We have a situation in Nevada right now. That might be a litmus test. Even though it's not about gun rights, it is about citizens' rights. Basically the same thing.
Every time our country stands in the path of danger, an instinct seems to summon her finest first, those who truly understand her. When freedom shivers in the cold shadow of true peril, it's always the patriots who first hear the call. When loss of liberty is looming, as it is now, the siren sounds first in the hearts of freedom's vanguard. The smoke in the air of our Concord bridges and Pearl Harbors is always smelled first by the farmers who come from their simple homes to find the fire and fight, because they know that sacred stuff resides in that wooden stock and blued steel, something that gives the most common man the most uncommon of freedoms. When ordinary hands can possess such an extraordinary instrument, that symbolizes the full measure of human dignity and liberty. That's why those 5 words issue an irresistible call to us all, and we muster. So, as we set out this year to defeat the divisive forces that would take freedom away, I want to say those fighting words for everyone within the sound of my voice to hear and to heed. From my cold, dead hands.
Henson Ange, followed by Justin Holstrom, Jason Tetlow, Thomas Philippides, number 659. Thank you. Please proceed.
Yeah. My name is Henson Ong. Forgive me, English is not my first language. I am a legal immigrant, and I am an American by choice. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to express my opinion and give my testimony in opposition to the majority of the proposed bills which do nothing to deter future crimes. Gun control does not work. And your own history is replete with high school rifle teams, Boy Scout, marksmanship merit badges. You could buy rifles at the hardware stores. You could order them, mail order, delivered to your home. Your country was awash in readily available firearms and ammunition. And yet, in your past, you did not have mass school shootings. Other people have already expressed the question, what changed? It was not that the availability of guns suddenly exploded or increased. It actually was decreased. What was changed was societal decay. If gun control actually did work, Washington, D.C. and Chicago would be the safest cities in your nation, but it is not. They have the toughest gun laws and the highest crime and murder rates. Now, some people have asked and called the AR-15. They call the AR-15 a weapon of mass killing. Well, it turns out that there are a few government agencies which disagree with that characterization. The Department of Homeland Security has stated that a rifle chambered in .556 NATO with a 30-round magazine is suitable for personal defensive use. I have documentation on that. It is HSCEMS-1212-00011, solicitation for the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency. Now, who needs an AR-15 with 30-round mags? That question has also been brought up. And I would like to put forward that had the Koreans in the LA riots not had AR-15s and AK-47s with 30-round magazines and Ruger 30s, their businesses would have been burned to the ground like all of the other businesses in their neighborhoods. Theirs stood because they stood their ground. I would also put forward the conjecture that had the 10,000 students at Tiananmen Square not been unarmed, things may not have resulted in so many of them disappearing. In your own laws, United States versus Miller, 309, U.S. 174, 1939, it was made clear that the type of firearms protected by the Second Amendment were those specifically useful and common for military use in defense of the state. I would like to note that the state is not the government. The state is the people. In Lewis,
excuse me, Mr. Arms, if you would.
In Lewis versus United States, 1980, it is stated that the Second Amendment guarantees no right to keep and bear a firearm that does not have some reasonable relationship to the preservation and efficiency of a well-regulated militia. It has nothing to do with hunting. The militia, as per the debates in the convention, shows plainly enough that it is composed of all males physically capable of acting in concert for common defense. And further, that ordinarily, when called for service, these men were expected to appear bearing arms supplied by themselves and of a kind in common use at the time. The AR-15 is the most common and popular rifle in America at this time.
Would you please wrap up?
I will wrap up. I would like to wrap up with a statement from Judge Andrew Kozinski in Silveria v. Lockyer, 2003. My excellent colleagues have forgotten these bitter lessons of history. The prospect of tyranny may not grab the headlines the way vivid stories of gun crime usually do, but few saw the Third Reich coming until it was too late. The Second Amendment is a doomsday provision, one designed only for those exceptionally rare circumstances when all other rights have failed. A free people can only afford to make this mistake once.
Thank you.
I, Andrew Witherspoon, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
Thanks for listening to the Second Amendment for Dummies. You can catch the show every Thursday. Have a good day.